Hello, hello, and I hope all is well for you today. My name is Gershly Karen Pierre, and I'm pro-marriage and I'm pro the nuclear family. When I first started my project, I wasn't sure how many Black families I would find, and there were many reasons for this. Number one, because I knew on an everyday basis that there weren't that many Black nuclear families, even though I didn't have the data at that time. Number two, when I would search, I would use hashtags, general hashtags, hashtag family, and I would scroll. You never really reach the bottom as you're scrolling and scrolling. I would only see non-Black families. And I believe that's just the way the algorithm is set up. You type in general terms and you're only going to get non-Black people. I guess they're the only people that can exist in general reality. Even if it's 32 million results for a hashtag, it's going to be very hard to find our families. I believe that's part of the crafty counsel the scriptures talk about. That made me think, okay, well, what's out there? Is there anything out there? By the grace of God, before I started this project, 961 did not seem attainable. For me, that is a very, very big deal. Never mind that. There aren't 961 Black families represented in media. That's where we get a lot of our cues and a lot of our awareness of each other. And do you see 961 Black families at all in the entertainment industry, let alone depicted in cartoons or television shows? You can find a surplus of non-Black nuclear families, whether it's in media or even in the individuals within their societies. But in our demographic, numbers like that is both optically and literally difficult to make sense of. And in this discussion, I want to talk about the numbers of Black nuclear families. Let's start by comparing the number 961 to non-Black populations. There is an actual statistic from the Census Bureau. It's less than 50%. That 900 marker that I could find is the visual example of the less than 50% of families we have, according to the Census Bureau. Whether it's Hispanic, whether it's white or Asian, they have more than 50%. The average amount of people in their demographics are married. So when you have more than 50% of a population doing anything, that is the standard for that population. It represents the majority of that population. 900 in one context seems like a lot, but when you spread that out into the larger world, it becomes an exception. Other groups have as a trusted rule. And so when you think of an exception, think of this. Let's say you go to a university and it is orientation day or just moving day. When I went to college, by the grace of God, my mom and dad took me to college. They helped me pack. They helped me set up. And I saw, because I went to a white majority, I've just been in white majority lived environments for my entire life. But I saw that with my peers, that their moms and dads were also helping them set up. And the dads would get together and make the dad joke stuff, and that's another story. But the point is, it was so normal for that to happen. And that's just one, and I went to a private small college. But can you imagine that's happening across the many different colleges and universities across the United States? And that's just the people who are taking their college-aged offspring to school. What about the two parents that tend to go to the PTA meetings, or that go to the elementary school, or the soccer moms? And this is happening in every state, in every district, in every county, in every town and that's just here in the United States, that what we can take as a shock and as an exception, as something that is beautiful, other groups just do. 900 families that I could find that are spread out across the world is not a concentration of people that could change the outcomes of our collective lives. But when families represent the majority, that creates a society that is comprised of families. And those families have family-friendly interests relevant for all members of their community, from the smallest / most vulnerable to both biological sexes to the different ages, are all represented in the family. And if you have a high concentration of families that make up society, that's all being represented, but within that demographic. And so what they would vote for, what they would believe, what they would hope for is going to be in the best interests of a regulated society based on families. So when you don't have a high amount of families to choose from, what is the narrative of that society? What are the politics ruling that society? What are the special interests ruling that society of non-married people? Because when you're married, your values adjust, because you're forming this life with another person and you're creating children with that person. Family-friendly communities are way safer to live in. They're way quieter. They're way cleaner. And they represent in so many ways such a haven for the people involved. But when you don't have a high concentration of families that are dominating the culture, that are dominating the population, that are dominating the society, what is now the influence? When I look at other collectives, I don't perceive them, except contextually speaking, and they know how to put that stuff away. I don't perceive them as partiers. I perceive them as very community oriented. But when I think of us, I think of sex, alcohol, drugs, partying, and just things that are deranged and depraved, but not considerate of our children. We don't really even have a lot of literature for children. We don't even really have a lot of films for children in our demographic. The influence is mainly for the adults. And when I say adult, what people tend to think of as adult is porn or drugs. And it's actually ruining our brains. If you look at the psychology of these things, it's ruining our physical health. So the adult world that's promoted for us at least, isn't even conducive to being socially acceptable or healthy. And it is destructive, and it's creating depravity and perversion. And so the family-friendly reality that we should create, it's going to force us to want to settle down. It's going to force us to change our habits. It's going to force us to say, you know what, we got to do this for a greater world. Family-friendly societies and a high concentration of families need to represent every level of our lived experience, from the media to everything you see around you. And it's not going to be good enough until we can get at least 60% of you were married. You'd still be dominating the culture. And whoever dominates the culture influences everybody else. And so we have to tilt this thing that even in the smallest case scenario, the majority of families would still exist. But personally, I would like it if we could be a population that had 80 to 90% of nuclear families, where it was just the lifestyle. I don't want it to be virtually rare. I want this baby mama culture and this single mother culture to be completely erased and represented by a dual family nuclear structure. And so 900 is a beautiful, it's like a postcard. Hey, look at the beauty of this. But that's the inspiration. That's what we need to build from. And that's just my numbers. But experts who have gathered the numbers, but whether it's numbers that we can find just anecdotally through research or through actual data, it's still low. It's higher than we would think, but it's lower than everyone else. And it's not this thing where the black race does not need families. that everyone else, they need families, but you guys don't because you're just so cool. And, we always have to be this cool image. That's so silly. Of course we need families. Not just for the love and the tenderness and the coziness of them, but for our kids. Our children are suffering out here without their fathers. The benefits of the nuclear family has been researched since the early 1800s. The data is secure. It has been expounded on since. And there's always new studies to suggest the benefits of an active father. Fathers play a massive role in the psychology of their offspring. I've shared this data on my platform as well. And just to paraphrase the data that I've researched, anything from teen pregnancy to criminality can be averted if dads are in their children's lives. We need our fathers. We don't just need to love our fathers, but we actually need them in our lives. There's only so much a mother can do. And she shouldn't have to do everything. She needs the help of the person who helped create her children, her husband, and the father to those children. These men play a massive role in the family. That's just how it's supposed to be. And if people want to say, well, women power, women this and women that, women can have power alongside of their husbands. And they can have even more power. If a woman is powerful innately, then how powerful can two people be together? And I just believe that if someone has power and then they marry someone else who has power, that's a powerful family. But if that one person has enough power, but they also have weaknesses, it's going to be a compromise. Someone needs to help counterbalance the other person's weaknesses. Our parents are our origin story. They're the reason we exist. So both of them need to play a role in raising and taking care of us and loving us. And I love my dad and I love my mom. And I'm glad that they both exist. I don't have a favorite. And when I was young, I just thought my mom and dad were the same person, to be honest. I didn't think of their gender. I just loved my mommy and daddy. And I think people need to give our children a mommy and a daddy, and the people that are going to love them and nurture them and take care of them and regulate them and raise them with great values. That's what we need. I believe if I want to have my children with my husband and we're raising our children together, that should be the dominant theme. And so pro-marriage, pro the nuclear family for us is making sure we can increase these marriage rates and also making sure that we can benefit these marriages, have great marriages. You happen to be non-black. Anywhere you go, for the most part, your population is married. You can take that for granted, I guess, but in my population, I cannot relate to everywhere I go, there's going to be a husband and wife or a couple or a family. I believe this era, the Great Tribulation, the Deuteronomy 28, I believe it's the abomination of desolation, because in desolation, there are many abominable things that make up our reality. That a population that is comprised of families, I believe, is actually more natural and more meaningful than a population comprised of broken homes and people trying to glorify that with words like baby mama and baby daddy. Compare a husband to a, quote, sneaky link, or whatever the stupid terms are. It just makes it look like that we're a sexually perverted group that doesn't value order. Because once you have the contentment made psychologically, dad is content with his children, mom is content with her children, husband is content with his wife, wife is content with her husband, children are content with their parents, then the society can progress to other conversations. The broken home is like starting from scratch every generation. If everywhere I turn my head, all I'm seeing are people that are married, that's a high level of security and confidence and mental growth and just so many things that we cannot currently put the words to. And I truly believe it makes people want to be a part of that. So what is it saying for us when everywhere we look, it's that lack of marriage or the lack of ideal marriages? How does that then inspire and feed the anti-marriage spirit? You constantly see a shortage of that. How does that then influence you to losing interest in marriage? So numbers influence our behaviors, our opportunities, our sense of group, our sense of personality. And without those numbers, what do you have? Thank you so much for listening. My name is Gershly Karen Pierre, a pro-marriage, pro-the nuclear family. Stay tuned for more.